The mountain town woke to thin light and a wind that ran along the roofs like water. Maya slid the lobby windows open to let in the cool air and the smell of wet stone. She worked the early shift at the small hostel near the bus stand, a place with clean floors, creaking stairs, and a chalkboard that listed tea flavors and trail warnings. She liked the quiet of this hour. She liked the sound of mugs touching the counter and the soft hum of the fridge. It made her feel steady before the world came in with its boots and questions. By 6, a group of hikers had come down the stairs, sleepy and loud, asking about weather and whether the ridge trail was open. Maya poured tea, spread jam on toast, and pointed to the bulletin they all ignored yesterday. "Rain is moving in," she said, tapping the chalkboard. "Start early. Turn back if the wind rises. Please sign the route book." Some nodded. Some smiled and said they would be fine. She watched them go with a feeling she knew well. She could not walk for them, but she could try to warn them. At 9, the bell on the door jingled again. A man stood there with a backpack that had seen better seasons. His jacket was patched at the elbow with neat stitches. His boots were scuffed but clean. He had a narrow face, calm eyes, and a way of standing that was almost too still, like he was listening to something inside the wall. He smiled when she greeted him. The smile was small but real. "Bed or room?" Maya asked. "Dorm bed is fine," he said in a quiet voice. "Lower bunk, if possible. Name's Evangelist." He slid his passport across the counter, already open to the page she needed, and took out cash folded in a flat stack. He did not count it twice. He did not make a show of being generous. He paid and then tipped the housekeeping boy with a simple "thank you" for the clean sheets. The boy grinned and ran for the stairs. Maya wrote Evan R. in the ledger and handed him a key card. He took it with a small nod. His hands were steady. There was a faint tan line around his left wrist, like he wore a watch most days but not today. She noticed, because she noticed small things. In a place like this, small signs told their own stories: the mud on boots, the way people held a map, the way they looked at the sky. "Breakfast is until 10, she said. "Common room is there. We have a small library and some board games. Please sign the route book if you plan to go out." "Thank you," he said. His eyes moved once across the room, not the way a tourist looks for color, but the way someone checks exits and corners. Then he smiled again, more a gesture than a feeling, and walked toward the dorm. By noon the lobby was a river of damp jackets, clinking carabiners, and half-laughs. A tourist couple argued gently about crampons. A local guide stopped by to say the long trail over the pass might be closed if the rain came early. Maya wrote it on the board: "Heavy rain possible from tonight. Check with police post. Avoid river crossings." The chalk squeaked. She wiped the line and wrote it again, neater. She saw the quiet man again in the common room. He sat by the window with a notebook and his phone. He was not glued to it like most guests. He looked for a minute, wrote something in the notebook, then put both away and just watched the sky. When a new guest asked how to work the old water boiler, he stood and showed them, wiping the spout with a clean cloth and testing the temperature with the back of his hand. He did not call attention to himself. He did not try to lead anyone. He just helped and then sat down again. Later, Maya had to check the fuse box because the kitchen lights flickered when the coffee machine kicked on. She had learned to do it because the owner sometimes arrived late and tourists needed hot drinks more than they needed permission. She went down the narrow hall with the key, and there, in the half-light near the box, she almost walked into Evan. He stepped back at once. "Sorry," he said. "I heard the switch pop, thought I could take a look." "It's all right," she said, a little surprised. "I'll reset it." He stood just behind her, not too close, and watched. When the lights came back on, he relaxed, and his face changed in a way she could not name. It was not relief. It was a kind of mental note, This is fixed, move to the next thing. You work nights too, he asked, like he already knew the answer from the way her eyes had shadows under them. Sometimes, she said. Weather weeks are busy. He nodded. Thank you for the warning board, he added. Many places don't bother. That small sentence warmed her more than she expected. She shrugged and said, we try. In the afternoon, a young traveler came in with a problem she had seen 100 times, straps, buckles, and nerves. The girl had rented a pair of crampons and could not get them to hold on her boots. She sat on the floor in the courtyard, cheeks red with frustration. Maya knelt to help, but the straps knotted, and the girl's hands shook. May I? Evan asked, appearing like a quiet answer. He did not take over, he asked. The girl nodded, and he moved with slow care, threading the straps the right way, checking the heel piece, tapping the pins with a knuckle. He showed her how to keep the strap from slipping and how tight it should feel. Not too tight to cut blood, not too loose to trust to luck, he said, as if he had said it many times. He did not boast about any climbs. He did not say where he learned. He patted the girl's boot once. You'll be fine. Maya watched from the doorway, half smile on her face. It was nice when people helped like this. She marked him down as a decent person who did not need to talk about himself. In a place where stories were currency, his silence felt like a quiet room after a storm. Near 4 o'clock, the local guide came again, raincoat dripping, and shook water onto the mat. Radio tower is down for the day, he told Maya. Police post says to keep people near town. Storm line is moving faster. He rubbed his hands and asked for sweet tea. Maya poured and added the news to the chalkboard with firm letters, radio issues. Stay near marked routes. Tell desk if leaving town. She underlined tell desk. From the couch, Evan looked up. Is there a backup repeater? He asked the guide in a polite tone. The guide blinked. Up at the Ridge Farm, he said. Old one. Not sure if it still works. Thank you, Evan said, and went back to his notebook. He took out a small laminated card and slid it under the cover, like he did not want even the wind to see it. His fingers moved over it once. Maya could not help glancing at the edge of the card. She caught a hint of numbers and letters that looked like frequencies, and names of places written in small print. The afternoon thinned and cooled. A bus came in from the lowlands, and with it a wave of muddy shoes and lost baggage claims. Maya found blankets, pointed to the drying rack, and went to check the gas cylinder because the stove coughed. The gasket needed oil. She tried the trick her uncle taught her, but the leak hissed again. Evan stepped up with a respectful "may I," and showed her the O-ring that had worn down. If you have a spare, he said, a quick swap will stop the hiss. His tone was kind, not instructive. Maya sighed, grateful, and found one in the drawer. The hiss stopped. She felt a small lift, as if someone had taken a heavy cup from her hand. Evening came with a slow rain. The street outside shone like a mirror. Hikers returned early, some wiser than in the morning. They talked about fallen branches and quick rivers. Maya made soup and lined the bowls on a tray. The common room filled with steam and soft talk. She liked this time too, when people were tired and kind, when the world felt less sharp. Evan ate at a side table, away from the center. He listened more than he spoke. When someone asked if anyone had a spare headlamp, he reached under his chair without looking and passed one over as if he had known the question would come. He had a small pile next to him, a folded map, a pen, a white plastic tape he flicked once in the air to see how it moved in the draft. He stilled it with 2 fingers, and the strip lay flat again. Maya wiped tables and listened to the rain drum on the canopy. She kept half an ear on the phone too. The clinic sometimes called when a traveler needed help to find a room, or when the police post wanted to spread a message quickly to guests. It made her feel part of a net in the town, each knot holding a bit of weight so nothing broke. Around 9, the power blinked twice and then held. People clapped in a joking way. The generator clicked once in the back room, ready to start if needed. Evan stood and checked the lights like it was his habit. When a tourist asked where to rent a bicycle, he answered without looking at a guidebook. Old depot near the post office, he said. Ask for the blue helmets. The tourist laughed. You are not local, and yet you know. People tell me things, Evan said with a small shrug. He left his bowl clean and placed it on the tray like he had done this in kitchens before. Maya closed the cash drawer for the night and checked the ledger. She did not like when guests went out without telling her, not because she wanted control, but because she wanted to know who to worry about if the weather changed. She flipped pages and counted beds with a pencil. The rain deepened. The bell on the door jangled once more. A middle-aged man with a wet cap stepped in, asked for the owner, and then said, "Never mind," when Maya told him the owner had gone home. He looked around the lobby with eyes that did not focus. Then he left, as quickly as he had come. Maya frowned and locked the door after him. She had learned to trust a small knot in her stomach that formed when something did not fit. When the lobby was empty and the common room had gone soft with board games and murmurs, Maya took out the suggestion box. It was a plain wooden cube with a slot. Guests put in notes about blankets or tea, and sometimes kind words about the view. She enjoyed reading them at the end of the day, even if she could not fix everything. She shook the box and heard one slip inside. She opened the back and slid it out. It was not the usual ruled paper from the check-in pad. It was a small square torn from a larger sheet, smooth and stiff, like from a map. Someone had drawn a bend in a river in a neat, quick line. A small rectangle sat near the bend, with a circle around it. Next to the circle, written in small block letters, was a single note, LZ. Maya stared at the letters. Her mind tried to make them stand for something ordinary. Laundry zone? Lunch zone? But the circle on the river bank, the rectangle, the exact shape of the arc, it felt like something else. She flipped the slip over. The back was blank. She looked toward the common room, where a group laughed over a card game and a soft song played on someone's phone. Nothing in the room had changed. But everything in her chest had lifted and tilted. She walked to the window and looked out at the river field, which lay dark and flat beyond the last row of houses. In daylight, children played cricket there. Goats grazed near the fence line. In flood season, the far corner filled with muddy water. Tonight the field was a single black sheet under the rain. The word LZ pulsed in her mind with the same slow beat as the generator relay in the back room. She thought about the tan line on Evan's wrist. She thought about the way he handled knots without looking. She thought about how he checked the wind with a tape, and how he listened to the building like a person who paid attention to machines. She did not know his story. She did not know why someone would leave this note in her box. But she felt the shape of a door in the dark, waiting, as if the map slip was a key pressed into her hand. The bell on the counter clicked as a draft moved through the lobby. Maya set the slip down and placed her palm over it, as if to keep it from blowing away. She told herself not to jump to strange ideas. She told herself that she was just a hostel worker on a wet night, and a guest liked drawing maps, and the rectangle could be anything. But the feeling would not settle back. It lifted the hairs on her arms and made the rain sound like a far engine. Footsteps came down the stairs. Maya slid the slip under the ledger without thinking, as if a part of her already knew it mattered. Evan walked into the lobby with his hood up and a headlamp hanging idle around his neck by the strap, not turned on. He paused when he saw her by the window, and for a second his eyes moved to the river field and then back to her face. The movement was small. It was enough. "Quiet night," he said. "For now," she answered. He looked at the clock, then at the door, then at the notice board with its firm lines in chalk. He opened his mouth like he might ask something, then closed it and gave the small, real smile he had given her in the morning. "If you need help with anything," he said, "I can move chairs or check the generator." "Thank you," she said. "I'll let you know." He nodded and walked toward the common room, soft steps on the old wood. Maya waited until he was gone, then took the slip back out and looked at it again. The circle seemed to glow even without light. She folded the paper along the river bend, not to hide it, but to feel it in her fingers. The field in the dark waited too. She did not know for what. The wind picked up and touched the windows. Somewhere in the hills, a dog barked once, then stopped. Maya stood very still and listened, as if some new sound might come to answer the question written in the neat small hand, "LZ." Rain came before dawn, soft at first, then steady like a hand tapping the roof. Maya woke to the sound and knew the day would be hard. She pulled on her sweater and went downstairs to the lobby. The windows were fogged from the kitchen steam, and the chalkboard looked pale in the dim light. She picked up the chalk and added a new line under yesterday's warning, "Heavy rain today. Watch for rising rivers. Tell desk before leaving." She underlined "tell desk" twice, firm and even. The act made her feel calmer, as if clear letters could hold back water. Evan was already in the common room, sitting near the window where drops walked down the glass. He had a small notebook open and a folded sheet printed with colored shapes that looked like clouds. He lifted his head when Maya set out a tray of mugs. "Is there a valley wind from east afternoon?" he asked in his quiet voice, like he was asking if the bread was fresh. Maya thought for a second. She knew local winds the way she knew the faces of her regular guests. "Yes," she said. "From the east when the sun tries to show, then it turns chill and comes down again." He nodded like he had added a piece to a puzzle. By 7, 4-day hikers stood at the counter with bright jackets and excited voices. They wanted to see the cedar grove and the old footbridge upstream. "We planned this for weeks," the tall one said. "It's not far. We'll be back by lunch." Maya's eyes went to their shoes, to the light food in their day packs, to the soft hats that would be soaked in an hour. She kept her voice respectful. "Please take the loop trail, not the bridge. The river rises fast on days like this. Sign the route book. Carry a whistle. If you see brown water or feel strong wind, turn back." They laughed kindly and said they would be careful. She gave them an extra plastic poncho and wished them a safe walk. As they left, she felt that small knot in her stomach that meant worry. The morning moved in a rhythm of towels, tea, and damp maps spread on tables. A local guide stopped by, drops falling from his hood to the mat. "Radio tower is out," he told Maya, rubbing his hands. "The police post is using mobiles only, and they keep dropping." He made a face at the ceiling. "Road crews say a small slide blocked the north bend." Maya wrote "radio issues. Road blockage north bend" on the board and thanked him. When she looked up, she found Evan watching the chalk lines, not in a nosy way, but like someone reading a plan. He slid a small laminated card back under his notebook. She caught a glimpse of numbers, like station frequencies, and short words like names of valleys. He saw her glance and gave that small real smile. "If lines are busy later, try the clinic nurse," he said softly. "She answers even with weak signal." It was an odd piece of advice for a stranger to know, but useful. Maya filed it away. Around 10, the kitchen stove coughed once and went quiet. Maya moved fast, checking the gas cylinder and the line. She had swapped the O-ring yesterday, but the cold seemed to stiffen the connection. Evan appeared in the doorway, hands clean, sleeves rolled once. "Do you want me to hold the pipe while you turn the nut?" he asked. "Not bossy. Just helpful." Maya nodded. He steadied the line with a light grip. When the stove came back to life, a warm hiss filled the room. "Thank you," she said. He wiped the pipe with a cloth and stepped back as if he had never been there. She thought of the little note in her drawer with the circle by the river. She had not asked him about it. She did not know if it was his. Some part of her wanted to wait and see what the day would bring. By late morning, the rain found its weight. It drummed on the canopy, and the gutter gushed into the alley. Phone bars slipped up and down like a bad melody. The lobby filled with people who had decided that cards and soup were better than mud and wind. Maya moved between tables with a pot of tea and a towel over her arm. She tried the police post twice to confirm the road news and reached only a busy tone. She tried the clinic and heard a nurse's calm recorded voice asking callers to stay on the line. Her heart eased a little. At least the clinic was there. Just before noon, the door banged open, and one of the day hikers staggered in, soaked and pale. His face had that hollow look of someone who has been very cold very fast. Mud streaked his knees. "Help," he said, breath thin. He slipped. "My friend." At the old footbridge. The path gave way. "He is on the far side with a bad ankle." The river. He stopped to gulp air. "It's loud. We couldn't cross. The bridge is half gone." The lobby went quiet in a way that made each sound count, the kettle hiss, the tap of a spoon, the wind at the window. Maya moved at once. "Sit," she told him, guiding him to a bench. "Blanket." A guest ran for one. "Hot tea." Another poured. "Where exactly?" The hiker tried to show with his hands. "Below the cedar grove. After the bend." A sign with white paint. "We left an orange poncho hanging on a branch." He shivered, and his hands shook. Maya picked up the phone and called the police post. "Busy." She tried the clinic. Ring. Ring. The line clicked, then died. She called a taxi driver she knew. "Road slide," he said, voice frowning. "I cannot pass the north bend." She thanked him and hung up. She felt the net pull tight and knew her small knot of worry had been a good warning. She grabbed the first aid kit and looked at the wet hiker's leg. Scrapes. No deep cuts. "Your friend's name?" she asked as she cleaned a wound. "Tarek," he said. "He can't walk." Maya nodded and wrapped a bandage neatly. "We will get help to him." Evan had moved without noise through the lobby while voices rose and fell. Now he stood near the desk, eyes on the rain beyond the glass. "Do you have a headlamp?" he asked Maya calmly, like asking for a spoon. "And spare batteries. And tape. And trekking poles. Also, a bright cloth for signaling. And the first aid kit, please." His tone did not push, but it had a thread of steel. Maya handed him the kit and the lamp. He checked the lamp, turned it on and off, then slipped it around his neck. "We will need space," he said in a level voice. "If we get a weather window, even a short one, we will need a clear field by the river. Flat, no loose sheets, no wires." He said it like he was asking for the floor to be swept, and somehow that made it less frightening. Maya understood at once. The small slip with the circle. The tan line on his wrist. The way he read wind with tape. She did not ask questions that would waste time. "The river field is open," she said. "Children play there. The far corner floods." Evan nodded. "Good," he said. "We will use the near side. Can you ask people to remove plastic, tarps, anything light? And goats," he added, like he had done this before. "Weigh down any cloth. Keep umbrellas closed near the field. Send 2 people to stand at the road to keep cars from stopping at the edge." He looked at the hurt hiker with kind eyes. "We will try to get your friend soon." Maya did not wait for permission from any owner or office. She lifted the bell from the counter, rang it once, and spoke in a clear voice that carried better than a shout. "Friends, we need help. There is an injured person by the river bend. The rain is heavy, the road is blocked, and the radio is down. We may have a short chance to get air support if the clouds lift. We need to clear the field by the river. Please, remove loose plastic, keep umbrellas folded near the field, and help us make 2 safe lines for people to stand behind. People stood up at once. This was one of the good things about travelers. When asked clearly, they liked to help. 2 guests grabbed brooms for puddles. A local boy ran to tell his uncle to move the goats. A woman from the next room took a roll of bright cloth and went to mark the edge of the field. Maya felt a pulse of pride for them all. Evan opened the first aid kit and pulled out gauze, tape, and a small foil blanket. He demonstrated to a guest how to make a simple splint using trekking poles and a scarf. This is for the ankle if we reach him before the lift, he said. He asked Maya for a marker and drew, on a scrap of cardboard, a large H to paint on the field if there was time. No paint, Maya said. He shook his head, half smile. Mud will do. He stepped out into the rain and lifted the white tape strip in the air. It fluttered hard toward the east. He watched, counted, nodded. When he came back in, water clung to his jacket in neat beads, like he had used gear that knew how to shed storms. The police finally answered. Their words came in drops, broken by static. Slide North Bend team on foot clinic informed. Maya repeated what she had heard to make sure. The officer asked who was organizing at the field. Maya looked at Evan. He looked back at her. Tell them you are, he said softly. I will handle the machine part. She did so, heart knocking but voice steady. The officer said good, then the line died again. Maya breathed slow and even and wrote officer, team on foot, clinic informed on the chalkboard for anyone who would ask. The hurt hiker's friend clung to his mug, eyes fixed on the door, wet hair dripping on his jacket. Maya put a warm hand on his shoulder and gave him simple tasks. Please keep the kettle filled. Tell new guests to stay away from the river bank. If your phone has even 1 bar, try your friend once more, but do not make him move. Giving him a job kept him from sinking into fear. He nodded and did what she asked. He tried the call and got a thin answer. I am here, he told the voice on the line. Hold on. Help is coming. He looked at Maya with a face that had light in it again. Out at the field, volunteers tied cloth to sticks to mark corners. A villager brought a shovel and scraped small stones away. 2 boys ran, picking up plastic carriers and stuffing them into a sack. Evan paced the grass in long steps and placed stones where he wanted markers. He had a handheld radio he had taken from his bag. It hissed with static. He pressed the side and spoke in a low tone, then listened, then spoke again. Maya could not hear the words, but the sound of it settled something in her. It meant connection, even if the lines were thin. She sent a guest with a broom to brush water away from the painted H, which was indeed a good thick mark in mud now. The sky hung low and gray like a lid. Then, without warning, a paler sheet slid over the ridge, and for a minute the rain lightened. Maya felt the change before she saw it. The sound of drops on the canopy softened. Air moved, not warm, but less heavy. Evan was already looking up. He lifted the strip of tape again. It snapped toward the north, then steadied. He met Maya's eyes across the field and gave a small nod that said, maybe. Maya told people to stand behind the bright cloth line. She moved 2 curious tourists away from the center and asked them kindly to hold the cloth instead. She checked that no one had open umbrellas near the edges. She told the boy with goats to take them all the way behind the tea stall. People listened because she was clear. At the road, 2 men in bright jackets stopped cars from pulling up near the field. A police jeep appeared and parked out of the way. The officer inside gave Maya a thumbs up through the glass. A deep sound touched the air, so low it felt first rather than heard. It was like a far drum, slow and heavy, then faster. The window glass in the lobby hummed. Loose spoons on the counter rattled together. People lifted their faces in the same instant and forgot to breathe. The hurt hiker squeezed his mug and then set it down with shaking hands. "Is that," he began, not finishing. Maya did not say yes or no. She looked toward the western gap where the river ran out of the valley and watched the sky like a careful reader looks at the next word on a page. The thrum grew stronger and found a rhythm. It came and went with the wind, then returned more sure. Evan stood at the edge of the field with his hood down now, rain marking his hair in dark lines, a headset in one hand and his other hand up, palm open to feel the air. He spoke into the radio and waited for an answer only he could hear. Maya pressed the chalk between her fingers until her skin went white, then let it go and smoothed her palms on her sweater. The thrum turned into a clear beat, and somewhere above the low cloud a shape moved like a thought beginning to take form. People leaned forward, and the field seemed to grow quiet, as if even rain and grass and stones were listening. Maya's heart knocked once, hard, and then held steady. She did not know what would happen in the next few minutes, but she knew this: when the sky gave a window, they were ready. The sound grew from a far hum into a steady beat that made the puddles jump as if they had hearts. The clouds over the western gap thinned to a lighter gray, and a shape slid into view, first a blur, then the clean outline of a helicopter shouldering through the rain. It came low and careful, nose a touch high, blades catching the mist and slicing it into spray. People on the field forgot to speak. They stared with hands on hats and hoods, eyes wide, feet planted where Maya had asked them to stand. Evan stepped forward with a kind of stillness that was not slow but exact. He lifted one arm and made a flat palm signal, then pointed to the wind line he had checked. He did not shout over the engine, he spoke into the small radio by his cheek and watched the machine answer with a slight turn, as if the pilot could see his hand through the rain. When the helicopter crossed the field's edge, mud leapt and the bright cloth line tugged hard. Umbrellas tried to fly. 2 volunteers held the cloth fast. Maya walked the line, touching elbows, and said in a low voice, "Stand still, heads down, keep the line. Please hold." People listened because she sounded sure. The helicopter set down in the near corner where the grass was firmest. Rotor wash rolled across the field and turned rain sideways. The operator cut power slowly, blades still turning. The side door opened. A crew member in a vest dropped to the ground with a compact pack and trotted toward Evan, head low. The two met with the quick nod of people who know each other's work. 2 minutes, the crew member said, voice sharp but calm. Window may close fast. Copy, Evan answered in the same easy tone he used to ask about tea in the morning, but his words were crisp now, clipped to fit the noise. Patient upstream, Old Bridge. Ankle injury, possible shock. One responder already at scene? Negative. Road blocked. We need first lift to clinic. Maya brought the first aid kit and the bright cloth strip. Evan took the kit, handed the strip to a volunteer, and pointed to the place where he wanted people to stand as a human fence. He looked once at Maya. Good lines, he said, and that small praise steadied her in a way she did not have time to think about. He slid a headset over his ears, clicked the cable into the radio on his shoulder, and lifted his hand again. The pilot answered with a touch of power. The machine lightened its weight on the skids. Evan spoke into the mic, clear and simple, and the helicopter rose like a careful bird and swung toward the river bend. For one long minute the sky held its breath. The sound faded upstream, then throbbed again from behind the trees. People on the field stood still, hands tied around hats. The police officer by the jeep watched the ridge with his jaw set. The hurt hiker on the bench gripped his blanket, lips moving as if he was reading a line he wanted to come true. Maya checked the phone again. One bar flickered, then vanished. She put it away. She looked at the H Evan had drawn in the mud and felt a rush of gratitude for practical minds. She walked the line again and thanked the volunteers. When she came back to the lobby edge, the guy who had run in with news of the injury stood up too fast and swayed. "Sit," Maya said gently, and he sat. She poured tea into his mug and held it until his hands were steady enough to take it. The helicopter returned as quickly as it had gone, now with a second shape dangling below for a breath, the bright rectangle of a rescue basket. It moved like a pendulum, swinging once, then steadying as the pilot trimmed power. When the machine set down again, the crew lifted the basket out. Inside, swaddled in blankets and a poncho, lay the missing hiker, Tarek, face pale but eyes open. Mud streaked his jeans. His ankle was wrapped in the scarf splint someone had made from Evan's quick lesson. Evan and the crew member slid the basket toward the door. Maya and two volunteers formed a windbreak with their bodies so rain would not blow into his face. The pilot kept the blades turning, ready to lift fast if the sky changed her mind. The clinic nurse met them at the door with a paramedic who had run across from the other side of town. "Warm him," the nurse said, hand on the patient's cheek, voice steady. "Keep the leg still." Tarek tried to lift his head and saw his friend. His mouth trembled with relief. "You came back," he said. "Of course," his friend said, wiping rain from his face. He laughed once, a small sound of thanks that was half a sob and half a smile. Evan checked the straps, checked the oxygen, checked that the paramedic had what he needed, and then stepped back. He did not stay for thanks. He walked around to the front of the helicopter and looked at the sky, eyes narrowed, counting something only he could count. When he came back to the door he spoke into the radio, "Clinic confirmed. Lift and go. River line steady. You have 2, maybe 3 minutes before the ceiling closes." The pilot raised a thumb. The crew secured the basket with quick clips. The door slid shut. The machine rose again, rain peeling away from its sides, and arrowed toward the gap with a sound that felt like hope. The field exhaled. People clapped without meaning to, short and quiet, like making noise might break the window that had allowed this. Maya smiled at the volunteers and said, "Thank you." The police officer lowered his hand from his cap and nodded to her. "Good work," he said, and wrote something in a small notebook. The hurt hiker's friend sat back with both hands over his face and then laughed again, shaky but real. "Thank you," he told Maya. "Thank you." She did not say "you are welcome" in the usual way. She put a hand on his shoulder and said, "He is safe for now," because that was the sentence that mattered most. Evan returned to the lobby with long even steps. He set the headset on the counter and wiped rain from his face with a square cloth he kept folded exactly. When he looked up and found Maya watching him, he did not play the moment big. He looked almost shy about what had just happened, as if being seen was harder than flying. "Thank you for holding the line," he said. "It made the landing simple." "You told us how," Maya said. "We just did it." A few guests approached with questions. "Are you a pilot? Do you live here? How did you know where to land?" Evan answered with the minimum that gave people what they needed to feel calm. "I help a mountain rescue network when I'm in the region," he said. "We share information. I try to keep a low profile so the work stays simple. The field is good. You keep it clean. That helps." One traveler asked for a photo. Evan smiled politely and shook his head. "Let's keep attention on the clinic," he said. "They have more work to do." He turned instead to the police officer. "If you can spare someone at the curb by the tea stall, it will keep cars from stopping under the approach line," he suggested. The officer nodded, grateful for clear advice that felt like help, not orders. Maya handed Evan a towel and a cup of plain tea. He accepted both with a quiet thanks. He sipped standing up, eyes still on the sky as if reading a page that had not been turned yet. The rain had returned to a steady line. The brief bright patch had moved on. The field was a sheet of wet grass again with a muddy H in the center and small stones marking corners. Do you? Maya began, then stopped. It felt wrong to ask for a story when work was still live. Evan spared her the trouble. He set the cup down and met her eyes with the ease of someone who had made peace with being asked and answering only what was needed. I learned to fly when I was younger, he said in a soft voice made even softer by the noise that had just filled the air. I used to work in a company that built small tech tools. We sold it years ago. I didn't need a big life. I kept the license current and helped a friend start a rescue nonprofit. When I'm in a valley like this and the weather is tricky, I help coordinate. I try not to make a fuss. Doing the job quiet helps the job get done. Maya listened with her head slightly tilted the way she did when guests told her where they were from. She liked plain facts mixed with simple feeling. His words had both. You left the note, she said, not as a question. He gave the small honest smile. I didn't know if we would have a chance, he said. But I wanted us to be ready if the sky gave one. You made the map into a place. That matters. Before Maya could answer, the radio on the police officer's shoulder crackled with a different sound, thinner and strained. He pressed the button and said, yes. A hiss, then a voice came, broken by static but clear enough to make the room turn its head. Bus, Hamlet upriver, road blocked by slide, passengers in bus, rising water near culvert, need tarps, water, blankets, maybe extraction if road stays shut. The officer looked up at Evan and then at Maya without meaning to. The room changed shape around that sound, narrowing to a funnel of purpose. Evan picked up his radio again. He pressed the side and spoke in the same calm tone as before, each word easy to catch. Copy, bus trapped upriver near culvert. How many souls on board? The answer came thin. Maybe 14, some elderly, one child. Evan looked at Maya. We will need a list, he said. Names if possible, ages, any medications. We will need hot water, dry cloths, and a clear path by the tea stall if we bring some down on foot. And if the weather gives another window, we may need to drop supplies first. Maya did not wait. She reached for a dry whiteboard that leaned behind the counter, the one she used to write dorm assignments when a group came late. She cleaned it with a cloth and drew lines with the speed of someone who had drawn many lines in her life. Bus Hamlet need/name/ages/med/contact. She called to the guests who had proved themselves good at tasks. You two, please start hot water and fill every flask. You, please bring extra blankets from the storage room, top shelf. You, please go to the tea stall, explain to the owner we may need space for people to sit and warm up. Please ask if we can borrow his largest kettle. She looked at the police officer. If I write names and conditions, can you relay to the clinic? He nodded at once, his pen ready. A small group of villagers arrived at the door, rein on their shoulders, hats pulled low. One of them was the uncle of the boy who had moved goats from the field. We heard radio, he said. We have sacks and rope, and 2 strong men for the path. Tell us where. Maya pointed at the map on the wall and used simple words, Hamlet by the Cedar Grove Road, before the old culvert. Stay above the water line. Watch for fresh slides. She gave them the bright cloth left from the field and asked them to tie markers in trees to show the path to any ambulance team that might come later. They nodded and left, steps quick but not careless. Evan moved through the lobby like a wind that did not shove but guided. He checked the spare fuel for the generator and asked the owner by phone, one lucky call that went through, for permission to use the lobby as a small command post. The owner, stuck on the other side of the slide, said yes, voiced trust in Maya, and then the line dropped again. The nurse called back with a voice that rose and fell with the signal. Tarek is stable, she said. Keep the field ready in case we can do one more lift with supplies. We will send a paramedic to the bus on foot unless the weather opens again. Maya wrote Tarek stable on a corner of the whiteboard and underlined it once for the hiker friend to see. He put a hand over his heart and breathed out, then stood with new purpose. "Give me a job," he said. "Please." Maya smiled and handed him a roll of tape. "Label flasks with bus so they do not get mixed with guest flasks," she said. He got to it at once. Outside, the brief light vanished as if a curtain had fallen. The rain deepened to a steady rope of water. The generator in the back room clicked, hesitated, then caught, and made a low steady sound. Lights flickered once across the lobby. People looked up in the same second, then relaxed when the hum evened out. Maya glanced at the ceiling, then at the whiteboard where she had begun to make order out of need. She felt fear, yes, but not the kind that freezes. It was a sharp, useful fear that pointed her toward the next right action. Evan stood by the window and studied the dark shape of the ridge as if listening with his eyes. He spoke without looking at Maya, the way a person speaks at the same time they think. "We may be working through the night," he said. "Would you be willing to staff the radio and the board? You know the town. People will give you details they will not tell a stranger. I'll handle the field and the air if we get another chance." He turned then and met her gaze, not as a boss but as a partner asking another partner to join him in a hard thing. "I trust you're calm," he added simply. Maya looked at the whiteboard in her hands, at the felt tip pen that left clean lines, at the faces around her waiting for the next instruction. She thought of how good it felt when small acts became part of a larger net. She nodded once, firm. "Yes," she said. "I'm here." The generator's hum dipped and then rose again as another plug found its socket in the kitchen. Rain ran down the glass in straight fast lines. From upriver, the wind carried a thin sound like voices wrapped in water. The lobby felt like the center of a wheel that had just begun to turn. Maya wrote the first name on the board in neat block letters, capped the pen, and looked up at Evan. He was already moving toward the door, headset in hand, the small tan line on his wrist bright against his skin where a watch would sit on a sunny day. He paused at the threshold and gave her that same small real smile, the one from the morning that meant both hello and thank you. "Call if the clinic reaches you with updates," he said. "I will," she answered. He pushed the door open into the rain and stepped out, the field beyond a dark sheet, the sky a low lid, the night just starting. Night settled over the town like a gray blanket, heavy with rain and the smell of wet earth. The lobby lights hummed under generator power. The whiteboard stood on the front desk like a small window into order. Maya wrote with neat strokes while voices came and went around her. She kept the line simple: bus Hamlet 14 people, elderly X3, child X1, needs, water, blankets, tarps, dry socks. She added medications, and left a space. When news arrived, she filled the spaces at once, then underlined so no one would miss it. Evan moved between the door and the window with steady steps, headset on his neck, radio at his shoulder. He checked the fuel cans like a baker checks flour before a long night. He asked the police officer for cones to place along the lane so no car would park where the helicopter might need to skim during a tight approach. He thanked each person who brought tools or cloth, not with big speeches, but with simple words: "This helps." "Thank you." Villagers came with sacks, rope, and a kettle as wide as a tire. The tea stall owner, who liked to bargain on normal days, did not bargain tonight. He pushed the kettle into a volunteer's arms and said, "Bring it back wet and shining." Maya smiled and wrote tea stall, big kettle secured in the corner of the board. Little notes like this kept trust strong. If the owner wondered later where his pot had gone, the board would show he had helped and that his help mattered. The clinic nurse called again. The line stuttered, then held. "Our paramedic is on foot to the bus." The nurse's voice was calm, the kind that pulls shaking hands into steadiness. "If the weather lifts, a quick supply drop will save time. We need tarps, water sachets, foil blankets, and a small box of basic medicine." Maya repeated each item back so she would not lose a word. She wrote them in a column and circled them twice. Volunteers began to stack items by the door, sorted by weight and tied tight with rope. Media did appear, as it always does when machines and risk meet. A young man with a camera came with a white plastic rain shell and soft questions. Who is in charge? Is it true someone landed a helicopter in the field? Can we film from the road? Maya considered him for one beat. She did not want a crowd. She did not want lights near the approach path. She stepped to the chalkboard and pointed at the lines. We are helping the clinic and police, she said in simple words. Please film from the far side of the tea stall only. No lights near the field. Safety first. The young man looked like he might push for more, but Evan walked over and stood in a way that was not threatening and not weak. He simply stood as a wall made of calm. Please keep your distance, he said. People need to focus. The young man nodded and stepped back, as if the night itself had asked him to be gentle. The radio crackled on the police officer's shoulder. Bus Hamlet, came the paramedic's voice, thin but steady. Reached the bus. Water up to the step but not entering. Passengers cold, anxious. One elder short of breath. No severe injuries yet. Road still blocked. Request tarps and hot drinks. If drop possible, mark with light. The officer repeated the words for the room. Maya wrote elder sob, then next to it added, check asthma meds. She drew a small star so her eye would return to it. She felt the tug of fear but also the strong pull of purpose, which is better than fear because it has a handle. Evan laid out a square of paper on the desk, a simple sketch of the valley with marks for the town, the field, the hamlet, the old culvert. He set a small compass on it and traced a line with his finger. Ceiling may lift just before dawn, he said softly, not promising, just reading signs. Cold air will drain out. If it does, we will have a narrow window. He turned the paper so Maya could see. We will keep the load light. First a sling drop, tarps, water, blankets, small med box. No passengers on the first run. If the path clears later, good. If not, we plan for one short haul with 2 people who need it most. Maya nodded, eyes on the sketch. She liked the way he said we. It made the long night feel like a bridge she could walk because someone was on the planks with her. I can build a list of who should come first, she said. Elder with short breath. Child if cold. Anyone hurt? We will ask ages and needs. She looked up. I will note what seat each person will take if they come down by machine. That way, no confusion in the field. Perfect, Evan said, and the word landed like a light on a shore. Through the evening, the lobby became both a kitchen and a small command post. Steam rose from the big kettle. Cups clinked. A line of flasks waited labeled bus. The whiteboard filled and was cleaned, then filled again. Maya's handwriting remained clear even as her fingers grew tired. Volunteers rotated jobs, 1 hour at the field to watch for trash blowing loose, 1 hour at the kettle, 1 hour resting with a blanket on a chair, eyes closed but ears open. The police officer moved cones on the lane and checked the crowd, which stayed small because Maya had set clear edges from the start. Evan paused just long enough to eat a bowl of soup. He stood to do it, against the wall under the old framed map of the high pass. He ate like he worked, plain and focused. Maya brought him a second piece of bread, and he thanked her with his eyes more than his voice. In a soft gap between radio calls, he told her small pieces of his past in the same simple style. I used to write code, he said. We built little tools. We were lucky, or early, or both. We sold the company. I could have looked for a bigger office. Instead I looked for a way to sleep well. He glanced at the door. A friend was a flight instructor. Another ran a small relief group. We put our parts together. A hangar, a store of radios and blankets, a list of numbers, and a promise to show up when the weather smiled even a little. He gave one of his quick, honest smiles. I like machines because they tell the truth. I like maps because they do not brag. I like nights like this because people show their best selves. Maya thought for a moment and then shared her own small truth. When I was younger, I wanted to be an EMT. My mother was not well for a long season. I learned to be calm next to a bed. I wanted to carry that calm into other rooms. Money was tight. I stayed at the hostel. Then one day I realized the lobby is also a room, and people also need calm here. She ran a finger along the whiteboard's edge. Tonight it feels like that dream is standing at the door and asking if I will come out. You already did, Evan said simply. You came out when you picked up the chalk. The wind shifted near midnight. The rain did not stop, but the drops felt less heavy on the skin, as if the sky had breathed and loosened a notch. Evan stepped to the field again and lifted his white tape to read the breeze. The strip fluttered, then steadied toward the north. He spoke into the radio and heard only a hiss, but it was a friendlier hiss now. He returned to the lobby and said, "We will prep for a pre-dawn drop." Maya organized the load like a puzzle. She grouped the tarps tied with square knots that would release with one pull. She packed the water sachets in soft bundles so they would not burst. She placed the foil blankets on top for fast reach. She asked the clinic nurse for the small med box, a simple kit with inhalers, pain relief, and bandages. When the nurse arrived, wet to the elbows but steady as a stone, Maya thanked her and wrote med box in bundle A on the board. She also wrote a note to herself, return pot. Thank T. Stall. A little after 3, the paramedic at the bus checked in. Passengers wrapped in seat covers, he said. Tarps will help. Wind pushing. Road crews are close but still blocked by slide. Child is cold but okay. Elder with short breath resting. Maya asked the names. He gave them slowly. She wrote each one in large letters and added a short note after each, cold, anxious, knee pain, breathing slow. Seeing the names made them more than numbers. It also made the room quieter, as if each name asked for care and the room agreed. Near 4, the clouds thinned at the edge as if someone had pulled a gray curtain just an inch. Stars showed like grains of salt for a breath and then hid. Evan checked the time, then the sky, then the field. He walked to Maya with his headset in his hand. When the machine comes, he said, I would like you at the field, at my side. You know the town. People trust your voice. After the drop, if the window holds, there is a case for you to fly up with the next load to set up a small triage line. It will be fast. You will help the paramedic choose who comes down first. Say no if you wish. Maya looked at the board, at the names and notes, at the cups and blankets, at the kettle steaming like a small volcano. She felt her heart climb and then calm. If the window holds, I will go, she said. Tell me what to wear, what to carry, and where to sit. She said it without drama, like saying she would step to the next room to get a towel, but her eyes were bright. Boots tied, Evan said. Hair tucked. Nothing loose. Headset will be tight. Keep your hands on your lap unless I say otherwise. If the pilot speaks to you, answer in short words. If you feel fear, put it in your pocket and focus on the next small thing. You will be good at that. He gave the small smile again, the one that somehow had kindness inside it. Bring the list. Bring a pen. The list is gold. Maya changed quickly, tighter jacket, scarf tucked in, laces double knotted. She put the board notes into a clear folder and slipped a pen behind her ear. She put the small med box into the top of the bundle so her hand would find it fast. She told the police officer who would hold the line if she left. She told the tea stall owner that his kettle was a hero and would return as a knight with dents but honor. He laughed and gave her a paper bag of sweet buns for the road, as if there was a road. The town felt like it was holding its breath. Even the rain made a softer sound. The volunteers moved with quiet care, like people patting around a sleeping child. The young cameraman stayed back as he had promised, lens down, hands in pockets, eyes wide but respectful. The police officer checked the cones again and lifted a hand at a curious scooter, turning it away with a firm tilt of his palm. Then the air changed in that way Maya now knew with her skin. It thickened, then thinned, then carried a beat that began low and rolled forward like a drum far down a street. Evan lifted his face, not to be dramatic, but to listen well. He raised his radio and spoke. The answer came quick this time, clipped and sure. He turned to Maya. "It's time," he said. They moved to the field together. The bright cloth line was already in place. People stood behind it, hats in hands, feet planted. The mud H was a dark letter in the grass. Evan placed the supply bundle on the marked spot, checked the straps, and tugged each knot twice. He looked at Maya and touched the folder in her hand. "Hold tight to the names," he said. "They will guide the whole morning." The helicopter slid through the low cloud like a careful fish through reeds, nose up, tail true. It held a steady hover and then kissed the ground with both skids. Rotor wash pressed the rain flat. Evan stepped in, stowed the bundle for the sling, and clipped a line. He signaled the pilot with two simple gestures. The sling lifted, the rope went taut, and the bundle hung clean, no spin, no swing. The machine rose, moved a breath left, a breath forward, and then headed upriver toward the hamlet, carrying warmth and dry and calm in a soft gray package. Evan stepped back down, ducked under the blade wash, and turned to Maya. He held out the spare headset. "If the ceiling stays open when it returns," he said, "we go." His voice was level. It felt like a door opening and light on the floor inside. They waited for the return with the town's heart beating in time with the rotors. The sky at the ridge edge grew lighter, the gray turning to a thin silver. The helicopter came back, skimming low. It settled with a bump. Evan touched Maya's elbow, guiding without pushing. "Now," he said. Maya took one breath to make space in her chest. She stepped into the wash, boots firm, scarf tucked, folder tight in her hand. She climbed the small metal step, set her foot on the skid, and reached for the inside bar the way Evan had shown her. The headset came down over her ears. The world narrowed to a clear seat, a belt click, Evan's nod, and the soft silver light of first dawn opening the valley like a page waiting for words. The cabin smelled faintly of fuel and wet wool. The seat belt clicked across Maya's lap with a solid sound. Evan leaned in and tugged the strap once to make sure it was snug, then gave her a thumbs up. The headset settled over her ears, and the world changed shape. Outside noise turned soft and far. Inside the cups of sound, she could hear Evan's voice clear and close. "Hands on your lap," he reminded her gently. "Look ahead. Breathe slow. If I point, nod. If I speak, answer short." His eyes were steady, not just to calm her, but because they were already reading air, trees, and the thin line where cloud met hill. The helicopter lifted like a careful hand raising a glass. The field slid away beneath them, the muddy H, the bright cloth line, the small group of people with faces turned up. The town shrank to rooftops, then to a cluster of lights, then to a gray patch at the base of the ridge. Rain ticked against the windows, the wipers flicked and cleared, flicked and cleared. The river ran below, brown and fast, pulling bits of branch along like toy boats. Maya kept her gaze forward as he had asked. Fear visited, quick as a bird at a window, then flew off when her job returned to the front of her mind. She held the clear folder with the names and needs. She counted them in her head. She pictured each face even though she had not met them yet, the elder with short breath, the child with cold hands, the driver rubbing his knee, the woman with a quiet voice who would ask about her bag. 2 minutes, Evan said into his mic. His hand made a small signal to the pilot. The machine dipped, then leveled. The hamlet came into view, glossy roofs, a small schoolyard, a band of villagers waving bright cloths they had tied to sticks. At the edge of the yard lay the bus, stuck on the lane just before the culvert, tilted a little but steady. The paramedic stood in the road, one arm raised, the other tying a tarp to a fence post. Maya saw the earlier supply bundle already opened, foil blankets like silver leaves, water sachets passed hand to hand. The helicopter touched down with a careful hop. Rotor wash pushed rain sideways. Evan's hand touched Maya's elbow, guiding, not grabbing. She ducked, stepped down, and followed him to a clear patch marked by white rice sacks the villagers had laid out in a square. The paramedic's eyes found them at once. "Welcome," he shouted, voice clear at last through the headset. "We have 14 total. One elder with a breathing issue, a child cold but awake, others anxious, 2 with minor injuries. Road crew says 2 more hours, maybe less." Maya switched from travel to work in a breath. "Names," she said, tapping the folder. The paramedic gave them, and she repeated each, writing with the pen that had waited behind her ear. She spoke in a calm, even tone that made people turn to her without thinking. "We will help everyone," she told the group in simple words. "First, we will bring down the elder who needs air and the child who is cold. The rest will have hot drinks, tarps, and a dry place to wait. The road may open soon." A grandmother with soft eyes pressed a hand to her chest. Maya knelt, set the small med box on a dry slab of rock, and opened it. "Have you used an inhaler before?" she asked. The grandmother nodded. Maya primed the inhaler, fitted the spacer, and coached her through the breaths: slow in, hold, slow out. The woman's shoulders dropped a little. Color came back to her face by degrees. "Good," Maya said, her voice low and warm. "We will bring you down to the clinic now to keep you steady." The child clung to his mother's coat. He had the stiff, brittle look of a boy who had been trying very hard not to cry for a long time. Maya crouched to his level and showed him the foil blanket. "This is a superhero cape that keeps heat," she said, simple and true. She wrapped it around his shoulders, tucked it at his neck, and put one of the tea stall's sweet buns in his hand. "Bite small," she said with a smile. He gave the smallest smile back, then a bigger one when he tasted the sugar. His mother's eyes filled. "Thank you," the woman whispered. "You're welcome," Maya said. "We will take him and the elder first. You will follow soon." A man in a driver's jacket stood by the bus door rubbing his knee in small circles. "We will walk you when the road is clear," the paramedic told him. "You are strong enough to wait. Sit. Keep that leg up." The driver nodded and did as told without argument, which told Maya that he trusted the voices around him. Evan moved like a hinge that turned the whole scene without drawing attention. He pointed where the intake zone would be, where the waiting line would stand, where the quick exit path would run clear of tarp corners. He kept one eye on the sky, he kept one ear on the engine note. He spoke to the pilot in short threads of sound. "2 souls this lift. Sling free. Wait light. Return quick." Maya checked the grandmother again. The woman's breaths came easier now. "We will walk to the machine together," Maya said, offering her arm. "Short steps. My pace, your pace." She held the child's small hand with her other hand and felt him grip tight, not from fear now but from relief that someone held back the rush of the moment for him. They moved as a small train, Evan clearing the path, the paramedic steadying the grandmother on the far side, Maya with the child. Villagers lifted the tarp corners high so no edge would fly into the rotor wash. The helicopter crouched, ready. The door slid open. Warm air and a clean light sat inside like a promise. Maya helped the grandmother sit and clipped her belt with a firm click. The child climbed into the seat across, foil rustling. His mother kissed his hair fast and brave. "I will follow," she said. "I know," Maya told her, eyes kind. "He will be at the clinic when you arrive." The door sealed. Evan signaled. The machine rose in a smooth curve and swung toward the valley. Maya watched it for one heartbeat and then turned back to the work in front of her. "Hot drinks," she called. "1 cup each. Sip slow." She moved down the line, repeating clear truths that keep people steady. "We see you. We have a plan. The road crew is close. The clinic knows your names." A man from the road team jogged in, mud to his shins, face lit by tired pride. "We've cut through the small slide," he said. "Big stones still in lane, but we can clear a footpath for walking with help. Another hour for cars." He looked at the bus, then at Maya and the paramedic. "We can start moving people on foot in groups of 4 with hands on rope." "Good," the paramedic said. He and Maya planned a pod system in 2 sentences, strongest first to test the path with a rope, then those with steady feet, then the last group with the driver supported on both sides. They assigned 2 villagers to each pod as anchors. The plan felt like a set of clean steps across a stream. The helicopter returned before the first pod left, the weather window still open like a held breath. It set down, and the pilot lifted a hand 2 fingers up, last chance for a short lift. Evan looked at the line, then at Maya. "Anyone else who must fly?" he asked. Maya checked the names. The grandmother had gone, the child had gone. The rest could walk with help, and the road would open soon. She made the call without wobble. "No more flights," she said. "We use the path." Evan relayed to the pilot. The machine lifted, turned, and headed back to town to refuel and wait for the next valley that would need it. They began the walk. The rope line moved slow and steady along the high side of the lane, far from the culvert where water pushed and argued with stones. Villagers had marked each tricky step with bright cloth. At every bend, someone stood to warn and guide. The child's mother walked with the second pod, eyes ahead, breath regular, hands firm. The driver came last, supported by 2 strong men and the paramedic's calm voice. Maya moved up and down the line like a teacher on a field trip, making sure no one felt unseen. By the time the first people reached the edge of town, the tea stall owner had lined benches under the awning and stacked cups in neat towers. "Sit," Maya said, pointing. "Hot drink. Clinic next." The grandmother and child were already at the clinic, wrapped and warm. A nurse stepped out and waved the next 4 inside. Maya watched shoulders drop, conversations start, small laughs bloom as fear left the body and made room for simple hunger and relief. The police officer came to her with a small smile. "Road opens in 20 minutes, he said. "We can bring the bus in slow after that." He looked at the whiteboard someone had carried from the lobby to the tea stall so the list would be close at hand. "This board," he added, tapping a corner, "is our morning record. We will keep it." Evan stood a little apart, speaking to the pilot over the radio, then to someone else, maybe another valley, maybe a store of supplies. He turned down a request from a camera politely, redirecting the lens to the road crew as they shoved the last stones aside. When he was free, he walked to Maya and nodded toward the clinic, where the grandmother sat by a heater with an oxygen tube and a very soft smile. "Good call," he said. The 2 words carried more weight than a whole speech. By noon, the bus rolled slowly into town to a row of small cheers. Tires pressed wet stones. The driver gave a quick salute through the window. People clapped because clapping is a way to put joy into the air so it does not sit heavy in one chest. Volunteers stacked borrowed blankets to wash and return. Someone wiped the big kettle until it shone and carried it back to the tea stall, who raised it like a trophy and left. Local officials gathered at the field in the afternoon. The muddy H was only half a letter now, stamped by many feet. Evan stood with hands in pockets, letting the council members talk first. Maya stood nearby with the board, answering simple questions: what worked, what they ran out of, which path was safe, how the line at the field kept people in place. When one official asked how to make future landings safer, Evan pointed to the power lines, to the loose sheets that had almost flown, to the goats that had watched with clever eyes. Mark a clear square, he said. Cut back the saplings at the north corner. Paint a proper H when the ground is dry. Keep a bin for loose cloths. Run a drill twice a year. Paint costs money, one counselor said, have to test them. I'll cover the paint, Evan said simply. He did not make a show of it. And radios, he added. One for the clinic, one for the hostel, one spare for the police post. We will leave a small headset and a laminated list of procedures. If you allow, I would like to fund a short training deck on the hostel roof so the staff can practice. Maya can coordinate. All eyes moved to Maya. She felt her cheeks warm, not from shyness, but from surprise at standing in a circle where decisions were made. We can do it, she said in plain words. We will keep it simple. We will practice. We will listen to the clinic. We will remember names. People nodded because the list made sense. The rest of the day slid into an easy evening. Guests returned to the hostel with new stories that felt like neighbors to the older ones. The whiteboard, smudged at the edges, leaned on the counter like a proud old soldier. The hiker whose friend had been lifted first came by with a small bag of fruit as thanks. He placed it on the desk and said, "You saved us by being calm." Maya said, "We saved each other by listening." It felt true. On the roof at dusk, the clouds were finally thin enough to let the ridge show its true shape again. Evan stood with a tape measure, marking the first lines for the future training deck. He worked the way he had done all day, no fuss, sure hands. He took a small card from his pocket, laminated like the ones Maya had seen in his notebook. It had the logo of a rescue network in one corner and her name typed clear across the top. He held it out. "If you want it," he said. "Logistics and Community Liaison, Trainee." It is a simple title. The work is what you already did today. We offer a small stipend for drills and callouts. If you choose to study as an EMT later, we will help with the fee. No pressure. You can say no. Maya took the card in both hands the way one takes a useful tool. The surface was smooth. The letters were neat. The word liaison felt like a bridge across a small river. She thought of the chalkboard, the kettle, the hands on the rope, the way the boy's fingers had wrapped around the bun, the way the grandmother's breaths had slowed. She thought of the small note with LZ, that had started a line she had followed to this roof. "I will say yes," she said. "Not because of the title. Because it fits what I want to do next." Her voice was simple and quiet. It felt like a stone placed in a sure wall. "Good," Evan said, and the small smile came, the one he used when words would only make a moment heavier. He clipped a spare headset to the temporary hook by the door. "I leave tomorrow," he added. "Another valley needs a check. But this place will be stronger when I come back, because you live here." They stood a while in easy silence. A small aircraft droned far away, only a speck against the last light. It was not for them. They watched it anyway, not as a wish but as a reminder that air and land and people meet in many ways, and tools help when hearts are ready. When it was almost dark, Maya walked down to the field with a brush and a tin of white paint the council had found in a storage room. She kneeled by the old muddy H and began to bring it out of the grass in clean strokes. One line, then the other. A boy from the lane brought a lamp and held it steady. "Careful," he said. "You missed a bit." She laughed and filled the gap. She stood at last, paint on her fingers, and looked at the letter. It was simple and strong. It said, land here, but it also said, we are ready. She slipped the headset around her neck, felt its comfortable weight, and faced the open sky. She was not waiting for a machine. She was looking at a path that had opened, a path of drills, lists, calm voices, and clear lines that turn fear into action. Somewhere up the valley, a dog barked twice and went quiet. The river sounded like a conversation she could understand now. Maya breathed in the cool air, light with the smell of paint and rain. She smiled, not at the thought of engines, but at the way a quiet man with a backpack had turned out to be a hinge on which her own life could swing open. The H gleamed softly in the lamp's circle. She set the brush down, touched the laminated card in her pocket, and knew exactly where she would stand the next time the sky gave them a window.